My interest in text really came from trying to figure out ways in which works could somehow articulate their own premises. So wanting works that somehow spoke to their reason for being. I wanted something that kind of like was deliberately convoluted and oblique and sort of confusing. So taking that idea or understanding, wanting the visualization of that text to be informed by that as well, I took to distorting text manually. So I'm really interested in these ideas about how noise informs how it is we come to communicate with each other, that no communication is sort of fully perceived from sender to receiver, that all communication is premised on distortion. The texts I choose, they're formative, but I also write texts. So these works incorporate texts I've written, as well as scans of books. I often write the text in a certain way, inferring the matter that is within the text that are photographed. So I'm kind of writing in relation to, or sort of questioning in kind in terms of the text that I'm using. I have manually manipulated texts I've laid out in Photoshop on a flatbed scanner, and the text is on an iPad. So what happens is it creates this distortion on a single axis. What happens from that point is I photograph the text using a medium format camera. So a lot of it is about sort of like really looking at how the text itself is convoluted, and I'm finding ways to make the process itself very convoluted too. I was in my studio, there was a studio party. I just had a beer can in my hand, and I was just kind of like absent-mindedly rubbing the beer can on the wall. And it's one of those things that I have these distinct memories, like as a kid, using pennies and rubbing pennies on a white wall would leave this silvery impression, and the beer can did the same thing. So I'm really interested in these makeshift processes using vernacular materials. In this instance, I'm really interested in kind of this idea of, it's called the explanatory gap, which is sort of what the title draws on, the explanatory void. So I'm really looking at this idea, the explanatory gap is this idea that if you were to describe what pain is, that the description of pain could never truly produce an experience of pain or any other experience. So I was really looking at that really peculiar relationship between language and experience, and also thinking about ideas of how it is we perceive things that are operating in any given artwork, that to describe them is not really to reproduce them. So it's looking at a peculiar inheritance from conceptual art in terms of the linguistic conceit. Indigenous art is any work of art made by an Indigenous person. Indigenous artists, they can make whatever they want and it still will circulate within that realm. That Indigenous art exists discursively. It's not something that automatically sort of is embedded in the material or object, that it is about the discussion around it that really informs sort of how it is we understand its Indigenous character. So something that I find really important is I'm an Indigenous artist, but I'm working in the English language. So this is something that is like a really complicated thing I'm still trying to make sense of.